Dear friends of the channel, Living in the Divine Will. Today we're going to talk about the Most Holy Mary, co-redemptrix. Is she or is she not the co-redemptrix? As you know, the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith has just released a document about this, and could this document contain errors or not? Do the writings of Louisa contradict this document? We'll be looking at these and other concerns now. And for this program, we have my brother Bernardo here, who has been a priest for 25 years and is the parish priest of a church very close to Rome. He also studied theology and philosophy at the Gregorian University. And I want to tell you that once when I went to see the Archbishop of Trani, the previous Archbishop of Trani, Monsignor Giambattista Piccieri, to tell him something about the apostolate we do for Luisa Picareta. Among other things, he told me to stay close to my brother, especially when these kinds of, topics come up, so that he can help us resolve them in an ecclesial manner. So we're going to analyze this document, but pay close attention. We're going to begin with the proper attitude, as is the will of God. Not with prejudice, with preconceived ideas, with, with the trends we see on the internet, with the opinions of third parties. No, we're going to set aside all those thoughts and open ourselves to see what God wants to tell us through his church, which can never be opposed to the truth. Because it is illuminated by God. It can't be, as some say, that 10 years, 20 years, or 50 or more years go by without God illuminating his church. That goes against the Catholic faith, because Jesus, with his divine word, with his will, told us that he would be with us every day until the end of time, right? Until the end of the ages. So it can't be that he sometimes illuminates his church and at other times he doesn't. That's not how it works. So with this simplicity, like the Most Holy Virgin, right? Let's open ourselves to look at this document.
Well, for now, greetings to everyone. And yes, it's important how we can approach, receive, and read a document like this with the proper attitudes. For now, one attitude, I believe, is necessary, that of emptying ourselves, of our ideas, of our preferences, of our own projects, of what we sometimes think things have to be, or what others have made us think they have to be. Precisely so that this freedom of heart and mind can, illuminate something new for us, right? And that is the attitude with which Mary really lived the moment of her fiat, right? The attitude that Alejandra was already kind of telling us. And it's really like that because Mary, at the moment of the Annunciation, the gospel says she experienced a kind of turmoil within herself, right? Something that she, perhaps didn't fully understand. She didn't know how it was going to happen, and so on. But, Mary's attitude was that of, trusting in God. The angel himself tells her, "Do not be afraid, Mary." And so this is now an attitude that teaches us we don't have to fear this. There can't be an opposition, between the church and us, her children. What's more, the church is mother and teacher. Therefore, she teaches us, as a true teacher on the path of truth, and as a mother, she wants what's good for us, right? So, on one hand, this attitude, and on the other, that of knowing how to trust in God and knowing how to accept, right? With joy, because it illuminates us. This new light, just as Mary said her fiat, let it be done in me. So yes, in the same way, we too welcome within ourselves this new thing, this document, which I think is really very beautiful, simple to understand, and illuminating for our lives.
And very complete too, right? Because it seems that on social media, they only talk about one tiny detail, and sometimes it's even a bit twisted. When the document, having read it, is so rich, it can help us understand many things because it comes from history, many biblical citations. It also quotes some of the church fathers. In short, the history of many. This document is very rich, isn't it?
In fact, this document has two fundamental intentions. We could put it this way. The first is an ecclesial intention, so that there is no longer so much confusion among the people of God about, well, the figure of the Most Holy Mary, our mother. Even Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez says so in the introduction, where he says that, well, this document has to clarify all the doubts, for the simplest of the faithful. That's why it was written in a very simple way, although it is theologically dense, because it actually talks about everything, about all aspects of theology, including the theology of grace, Christology, in short, all aspects of theology, but it's very simple. Therefore, we can all read it. You can download it from the internet, from the Vatican's website, and you can really read it. Well, our first intention is this, that there no longer be confusion among the Christian people, and that there not be that division caused by some people thinking one way and others another, and some claiming one thing while others don't, and that's not right. The other intention is precisely that of theologically seeking to find a necessary and appropriate balance between the various theological truths, and especially in the important figure of Mary. Because yes, well, it's important to clarify, the office of Mary as Mother of God, which is the title and the reality, is truly the most important and primordial truth in the Most Holy Mary, so that we really truly put her in her proper and rightful place, right? Why? Because through the confusion, well, either she has been placed in a higher position than she has, almost putting her on the level of God, right? Almost like another God, right? Another Redeemer, another Jesus Christ. No. Mary is always a creature. The most beautiful, most holy creature. Yes, that's true, isn't it?
Full of grace.
Full of grace, because God chose her to be the mother, right, of the incarnate Word. Then, well, that's true, but let's not exaggerate and exalt her more than is due. And others, on the contrary, want to disfigure, right, her image, in the sense that they, well, lower her, right, a bit from what she really is, right? They diminish her figure a bit. And so, well, this is more or less the intention of this document, to clarify doubts and create much more to shed more light on our Christian life in relation to the Most Holy Mary, our Mother.
Yes, in fact, it speaks a lot about the divine maternity of Mary, as you said, right? But which is the first dogma, in fact, and well, as was said, from which the others spring in Mary. And but applied, yes, to Jesus, and in a way that is, well, broader and deeper, I would say, along the lines of how we also learn it from the writings of Louisa. It says that her maternity is not limited only to the physical maternity, obviously, of a mother, the corporal maternity of a mother who she conceives and gives birth to her child and educates and nourishes him and so on, right? But it goes further. It is indeed associated in a very special way with his redemptive work and with everything Jesus does, not only at the foot of the cross, but that from before, from the moment she gave her consent, she even says that from before in a certain way, because God was preparing her precisely to be his mother. And from the moment of her fiat, throughout the life of Jesus until the end, she is united and collaborates in a unique and special way in that work of redemption, but always with her maternal role, as we also discover in the writings of Louisa. So that reality is what is normally understood, that collaboration in redemption is what is understood. Well, some of us understand that by co-redemptrix, but it seems that over time there have been some different interpretations of this, right?
Exactly, because one of the dangers of using this title of co-redemptrix applied to Maria is that she will separate a little bit of the figure of Jesus, which cannot exist, because if Mary is Mary, it is because she is the mother of Jesus, the mother of the Son of God. Therefore, they cannot be separated as
parallel, aren't they?
Exactly, they can't be parallel. And the very title of co-redeemer almost gives that idea, or may give that idea to some, that there is a redeemer and there is speculatively a redeemer, as if they were two of the same level. No, it's not like that. Let us remember that Mary is always a creature. And the Redeemer is only Jesus Christ. Please note that that title cannot be duplicated. And in reality, especially in this last century, the past century, it has, well, I have already studied this title, this particular title, as it is applied to Mary, quite a lot, and in great detail. Even the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, that is the Vatican body responsible for safeguarding doctrine, and Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, had already in fact addressed this matter. I have conducted studies with all the theologians in the congregation on this point. Certainly, even some popes throughout the history of the Catholic Church have used this title when confiding in Mary, the mother of Jesus, but it is important to note that, for example, John Paul II, who was Pope from 1978 to 2005, used this word at least 7 times in different contexts. However, after Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, told him that they had studied the matter and concluded that it was not appropriate to use this title, John Paul II never used it again in any of his speeches, writings, or public addresses. What's more, look at this. It's a beautiful thing for us to understand, accept, and enlighten our lives with that acceptance from a pope. The very pope who listens to the one in charge of clarifying Catholic doctrine, in this case, Marian doctrine, right? And well, he himself had the humility to follow this guidance, right? And so for us, it's not difficult to follow this either. In fact, right? For us, it means that this is the safe path. For us, it is the will of God, right? We can't be against this. It would be truly terrifying. Lately, I've heard that some priest has even set up a contrast, right? Almost the Pope against Louisa, Louisa against the Church, the Pope, just over this issue. No, this isn't possible, right?
No.
In fact, for example, what this document says, right? Regarding this title of co-redemptrix, it doesn't say that the church should never use it again. No, it doesn't say that, but it says it's inconvenient to use it, it's inopportune to use it. Why? Because a word can be interpreted in many ways, and everyone can interpret it differently, and this is precisely the confusion that must be avoided.
So it's clear here that they aren't denying the special collaboration of the Blessed Virgin in the entire work of redemption, intimately united with her Son, but only the word itself. Why? Because some comments make it seem like they're denying the co-redemption, meaning the content itself. No, the content is safeguarded. The correct content is safeguarded, but it says that the word, now that they've analyzed it, is not exactly the most suitable. That's all it is, the heart of the matter, right?
And the same goes for the other title the document mentions. Mary as mediatrix of all graces. Another problem of interpretation. Because in reality, if we think about it, for example, to summarize the issue a bit, Mary Most Holy has, by her very nature, received all the grace of God, right? Now, the grace she received, including that of being the mother of God or of being immaculate, well, it's not possible that she gave it to herself, right? Therefore, she cannot be the mediatrix of all graces, right?
Theologically speaking, it's not correct.
It's not correct. So this document really helps us to understand all these important matters concerning Mary Most Holy with much greater depth and clarity. It's truly very enlightening, and it can genuinely help us a great deal in our spiritual life and also in our Christian life.
So you see, what the church is essentially doing is removing the misinterpretations and helping us understand the correct interpretation so that we don't go astray. And if the church is doing this, it's because for many years now it has been receiving these kinds of misinterpretations there in the Vatican. We have to trust her, right? Well, for example, those petitions that were made for the proclamation of the dogma of Mary as co-redemptrix, advocate, and mediatrix of all graces. But it wasn't a humble petition, but rather a demand over several years, a bombardment that really borders more on fanaticism and spiritual pride, don't you think? And so that's just not right. I mean, it's like without any reasoning, just repeating things. And the worst part is that it was based on a supposed Marian apparition that the dicastery, well, since 1974, after analyzing it, looking at evidence and everything, not just lightly or out of prejudice, but really seeking the truth, well, it reached the conclusion and judgment that it was of no supernatural origin. That's the most negative judgment the church can give, right? And then recently it made it public again, more public, reaffirming that this has not changed because people, I don't know why, right, have this sort of distrust of the church and they trust more in these kinds of, well, supposed phenomena when the church has already discerned that they are not authentic. Look, this is really bordering on disobedience, isn't it?
Well, certainly, because therein lies the confusion among the people of God. Because I don't know why, really, more credit is sometimes given to supposed apparitions, to supernatural messages, to aspects of that kind, more so than to the gospel itself, right? I think that's one of the other problems that has led to the need to clarify this situation. Because, well, sometimes the figure of Mary is made more, let's say, central and important than the figure of Jesus.
And in those messages,
even more so than the gospel itself. That, really speaking as Christians, is aberrant, isn't it? Because, well, Jesus Christ is the center. He is the only redeemer, the only mediator, right?
And even to live in the divine will.
Exactly.
The center is Jesus, the door is Jesus, and yes, we do find the Blessed Virgin there as our mother, associated with the work of redemption and with everything God does, but always subordinate to Jesus.
Exactly. In fact, in this document, one of the very beautiful things it says is this, that the moment we unite ourselves with Jesus, we are uniting ourselves with Mary. We find her there in Jesus, right? Because that is her role as mother.
How wonderful.
So she is not separate. We cannot think such a thing. One thing that regarding these apparitions, manifestations, messages,
supposed ones, supposed because not all of them are true.
The Vatican, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, well, for some time now has been studying the matter extensively, precisely to give it more of order, let's say, specifically to the Christian people, right? Last year he released some norms, a document, norms for proceeding in the discernment of presumed supernatural phenomena, right? And based on that, well, in recent months, he has released many documents about the different supposed apparitions or supernatural phenomena that are circulating around the world, right? The latest one, for example, 2 or 3 days ago, was the phenomenon of Dozule, right, in France, huh? That those apparitions that wanted and intended to build a cross 753 meters high, it's absurd, right? Well, now
of material things, right? Materiality.
The one from Castel now declared that it is truly false, huh? Therefore, it's not that we should continue with that saying, oh no, the Vatican is wrong. That's not possible. It is guiding us. As I was saying, John the 23rd, Pope John the 23rd, well, in that beautiful encyclical, said the church is our mother and our teacher, right? Therefore, it is not against us. Why should we really be against it, actually? It's like in a family, right? There's a rebellious son, right? A mother, she certainly loves her son. She wants what's good for her son and wants the best for him, right? But if the son doesn't want to receive it and becomes rebellious, well, he's not going to receive anything, right? What's more, little by little, that love between mother and son will cool. And that's what's happening with some people, right? That love and that sense of belonging to the church cools, and they end up truly against the Pope, and deep down, against themselves, because they separate themselves more and more from the church. Yes, indeed.
Regarding this, I wanted to comment that, well, within that movement from that apparition that was already determined not to be supernatural, from Amsterdam, well, a movement emerged that was the one that so insistently asked for the dogma of co-redemption of Mary as co-redemptrix. And because of that movement, I don't know, well, it's like they're making these human interpretations or interpretations from movements. I don't know. They were saying that after the dogma was proclaimed, the last supposedly Marian dogma, then the kingdom of the divine will would come. That is the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But that's not how it is either. I mean, if it comes from a source that isn't true, then that's not how it is either. And I refer you to the writings of Louisa. In them, we see clearly that Jesus tells Louisa that for his kingdom to come, well, it is first necessary for him to deposit all his teachings and his truths in her, and that from her she should pass them on to others. And he says that when people get to know, as they get to know these truths, they will feel attracted to it by the good things they are going to receive. And then if they want to put them into practice, then they will begin to form the kingdom of the divine will. They will begin to live in it and take possession of it. Here it doesn't say that first, before that, a dogma has to come, or any other event that circulates so much on social media or in that type of inspired group, I don't know, in supposed apparitions, and that are placed as if among the work that is already of Louisa, the writings, all this that is already inside the church and is already available to us, that we can read and live it, and then it is placed and people are waiting for external things to happen and they do not get fully involved in living this. So paying attention to these things is actually an obstacle.
I think that, well, for example, when we consider for us this particular spiritual path that we are following, right? It's something that for us really means a lot and is quite significant. Wouldn't you agree? Living in the divine will is a serious path, isn't it? A deep Christian life, isn't it? And so we have to carefully and thoughtfully separate it from everything that apparently, that is, some have joined together, but that is not right precisely. Alleged apparitions, messages from other alleged psychics, or things of this kind. No, it doesn't have to be attached. This thing needs to be unstuck. Have a precious treasure, which is Louisa's spiritual diary. Furthermore, just to conclude and to make sure we are all clear on this important detail, let us remember that in the writings of Louisa, the word co-redemptrix is actually only used a total of 5 times. This is a noteworthy point to keep in mind as we consider the significance and context of this term in her works. In volume 17, this occurs 3 times, and then once in volume 20. And once he uses it in the sense that all who join in the redemption in Jesus become co-redeemers, he uses this word, but understood in this way, in that we make all the goods of the redemption our own and participate in the redemption. But it means that in Louisa, she wrote a total of 36 volumes, as we know, which is truly an enormous and extensive diary. Interestingly, she only mentions it 5 times throughout all of her writings. Furthermore, she refers to it not as a central or primary theme, not even dedicating any specific chapter to it, but rather she addresses it as a theme that is connected with the concept of motherhood, and more specifically, she focuses on the idea of divine motherhood. Therefore, the issue of co-redemption is not in fact a central or predominant theme for Louisa. We do not have to link these concepts together or make it seem as if Louisa were predicting or foreseeing corruption, because that would not be accurate to her writings or intentions.
As if I wanted dogma. Well, as conclusions, we can make a few important points. First, let's never forget to always maintain this open and humble attitude of humility, so that we can truly see what God wants to tell us through the Church each and every time the dicastery or the Vatican or the Pope releases a document or issues a magisterial teaching. Because in this particular case, this already falls within the ordinary magisterium of the Church, right? And well, something very important too, because sometimes there are people who have doubts and say, no, the prefect of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, well, he's not infallible, right? But since he is a collaborator of the Pope, well, he's collaborating, and if the Pope has already signed it and everything, well, it falls within the magisterium. In short, we shouldn't be doubting.
Ordinary magisterium. We're not yet talking about or discussing the concept of infallibility, right? But in any case, it is precisely an ordinary magisterium because it's a guide to follow, right? Since this document was signed by the Pope, right? It means that, it's just so that we have that attitude of welcoming, of letting ourselves be guided by this light and truly living it with joy as it should be. Just as Mary said her fiat, so we too now, because for us it is the will of God, and we say our fiat.
Louisa herself, right? When they put her books on the index, do you think she distrusted or criticized, or I don't know what attitude she took? No, her attitude was, I submit as a faithful Christian to what the church says, and I condemn in my writings what the church condemns. So we have to, well, be in the will of God and receive, as I'm telling you, any future document that comes with that, openness and spiritual humility, and knowing with complete certainty that it will not contradict in any way anything that comes from God, you see? Another point, well, it was already mentioned, right? To know how to start separating, to detach, because even if they were true things, true phenomena that have served you in your life, you have to detach to move forward. The spiritual life as well. I mean, one takes from things, from people, from events, what God wants to give us in that moment, but without attachment, to be able to move forward, advancing in our spiritual life. Another thing would be to specifically welcome this document and learn from it, because as I'm telling you, it does have a lot of richness.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yes, one last thing, if I may say so, is this that we really truly have to put an end in our times to that persistent spirit of rebellion, right? As if we had to tell the Pope what to do, as though it were somehow our responsibility or duty to instruct him, which of course it is not. We need to remember that. Or as if we knew what the absolute truth is and everyone has to follow us. No, we have to have good discernment in that sense. And above all, even if they are priests, and it has happened, even bishops who have opposed the Pope, they don't leave us in peace and don't let us live a serene spiritual life. Therefore, let's have that capacity for discernment, and well, let's really keep our eyes and ears open to know how to proceed.
And a docile will
Exactly, and a docile will.
also.
To also let ourselves be guided by the church.
Well, then, I believe that concludes this program, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Until next time, goodbye.